Hey, happy day. So it's becoming transparent that if I want to continue my experiments in a fashion and test my theories, I need a polyphase generator of higher order. I need to create a lot of phases equally, and it's quite difficult to do with electronic circuits to do as many phases as I need. So I'm going to have to make a generator, which I'm doing here. So this is a stator with 18 poles, each wired individually with individual leads, all 18 of them. So I have 18 individual coils. Now these could hook up in series, 1 and 10, 2 and 11, and make 9 phases, or you could use each one individual. I'm going to have to test which way is better for what I want to do. Now, at first I made a rotor with 2 large magnets that cover 3.5 poles each that rotated around this. Hopefully I get my 9 phases out. It didn't work like I expected. And I had a feeling it wasn't going to, because the spacing is not correct, because there's a big air gap. If the coils were going like this, like my football coil, it would have worked. But because they're going like this, when one magnet's here, one magnet's here, there's a big air gap, which creates an unequal magnetic flux line, like the blotch wall in between, because there's an air gap. And what happens is you get that stupid M wave, which anyone who've experimented with this stuff sees all the time. And that pretty much happens because the air gap in between the magnets. Because when the magnet is lined up on north and south in between one coil with the blotch wall in between the coil will be at peak polarity, at peak voltage level. But if that blotch wall isn't equal to the strength of one pole, you get the M-shaped, which I don't want. I want smooth sine wave. So that means you have to make a magnetic rotor where the north pole covers half the rotor and south pole covers the other half. So the entire rotor has to be enclosed with a magnetic field that's divided in half, which is rotating around the rotor. Okay, knowing that, this is my next attempt, which I think is going to work good. This is the rotor I made for 48 magnets that are 10 by 10 cylinders. Okay, so it'll be 24 magnets per side. So it'll divide in half. Half of them will be all north, half of them will be all south. So it'll make a fully enclosed magnetic sphere of a bubble, per se, of magnetic power of half and half that will rotate around this. Therefore, my phases should be beautiful if my theory is correct. Okay, so now the alignment has to be perfect. Now I do have a little wobble in it because the shaft I'm using is just a 5/16 screw and an 8mm bolt. So there's a little wobble, but I could replace that bolt with a better shaft later. Anyway, after the magnets are glued in and inserted, the thing would spin like that. And as you see, the air gap is beautiful. The air gap is excellent. And those are lined up pretty much right in the middle of those two rows of magnets. I have to optimize that, get that perfect. That's no problem, with a couple washers, and there she goes. Now that will be the generator. So this would spin either with a motor, or I could mount magnets on external things and use a coil to spin it. But I don't want the pulsing coil primary mover to affect the rotor, so I might have to use a separate motor to spin it. But however it works, this should create alternating current, a polyphase of higher order polyphase alternating current. And I could take these leads and do what I want with those phases. So as you know, house electricity gives you usually 2 phases, which are 180 degrees apart, which if you wire them in series, which is a 240 volt circuit, positive to positive, but actually it's positive to negative, the way the phases are, you pretty much have one phase, like split into 2, which they call 2-phase, but they don't give you 90 degrees out of phase, they don't give you 20 degrees out of phase, they don't give you the phases. So you have to create them. You could use a signal generator, but usually those just have 2 outputs, so you can only get 2 phases. But if you want high order polyphase, it gets a little more difficult because there's not much commercially designed except 2-phase that's 180 degrees out of phase, or 3-phase that's 120 degrees out of phase. They don't give you many more options. So if you want to do 9-phase, 18-phase, 7-phase, 9, or whatever it is, you kind of have to make it yourself. Maybe there's another option, but this is... Now, essentially, I wanted to create my 9 phases. I've been trying all with solid state that doesn't spin. So have a rotating magnetic field created with coils around this. And I could get it to work, but I don't know. I don't have access to the right core shapes and the right... because everything needs cores to keep the magnetic flux in there and give it a path and concentrated, but I don't have the right cores to complete a core around this that fits perfectly. And I'm not really the metal machinist. So I have to kind of use what I have and what I have available. But anyway, this will, I mean, if I ever have to, if I find the winning ticket, I could get it manufactured. But I'm not going to do that until I verify that the idea is going to work. So this is going to be a higher order polyphase generator that is going to generate current out of these 9 wires in a fashion, because remember, the magnetic field, all this is north. So half the coils are going to be north at once, or positive, while half the coils are south. So therefore, the sine waves are going to overlap each other nice and smooth. So if I put these 9 wires into another stator, wired the exact same, you'll get magnetic rotation on a second stator. And it will be true rotation because it's being created from real rotation. So therefore, I will be able to continue my experiments. So hang tuned. I'll give an update once I get this cooking and I get my phases. I'll try to show the phases, show you how it works.